Hello, everybody. This is Ralph Martin from rjqualityconsulting.com. And in this video, I want to talk about the ISO 17025 Quality Management System requirements. As a certified ISO 17025 auditor, hey ho. Yeah, sweetheart. Hello, everybody. This is Ralph Martin from rjqualityconsulting.com. And in this video, I want to answer a question that I get quite a bit from my readers. As many of you know, I am a certified ISO 17025 assessor, and I get a lot of questions. One of the questions that I've gotten more than a few times now, and that is, what are the 5 requirements of ISO 17025? And, you know, this I'm not sure why they're asking specifically the 5 requirements, because there are obviously a lot more than just 5 requirements of ISO 17025. But upon further research, I realized what really is meant by this question. There are actually 5 sections of the ISO 17025 standard that indicates what the requirements are for a laboratory to meet the requirements of the standard. And there really are only 5 main sections of the standard that deal with these requirements. And within these requirements, there are several different types of requirements when it comes to documentation requirements. For example, in some of the clause elements of the standard, there is a requirement for a procedure. Some clause elements in the standard, there's a requirement for some sort of document or objective evidence that the lab meets the requirements of that particular section. So I thought it would be a good idea to write a blog article. This particular blog article, I have a section that is called "What are the 5 requirements of ISO 17025?" because I really wanted to address this and break it down. But if you're watching this video on YouTube, you can go ahead and click the link in the description where you can read this full blog article that I just wrote. The title of the blog article is ISO 17025 Quality Management System Requirements. And it's a pretty detailed article. I mean, it's about 3,000 words, but I go into a lot of detail of ISO 17025. So if you are a laboratory and you're looking to get more information about how to get your laboratory ready for an ISO 17025 accreditation audit, or you're already accredited and you're getting ready for your accreditation body's either surveillance audit or reaccreditation audit, I think you'll find this blog post helpful. And I am here to help. And what I'd like to do, first of all, is go down to the section and specifically answer the question, what are the 5 requirements of ISO 17025? So as many of you know, the standard is broken up into really 8 clause sections. The first 3 are really just references, definitions, and things like that. And really the meat and potatoes of the standard reside within sections 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Those are, by definition, the 5 requirements of ISO 17025. You have section 4, which are the general requirements. You have section 5, which are structural requirements. You have section 6, which are resource requirements. You have section 7, which are process requirements. And then you have section 8, which is management system requirements. Each of these sections go into, of course, subclause, which get into more of the details of that section. But what I've done in this blog post is I've really kind of taken each of these sections and broken them down and basically talk about what the requirements are. So section 4 is all about the general requirements, and that pertains to section 4.1 and 4.2, which is impartiality, section 4.1, and confidentiality, which is section 4.2. This section covers, the fundamental principles that a laboratory must follow, with the guidelines of impartiality, confidentiality, and integrity within the testing and or calibration results, depending on whether you are a testing laboratory or a calibration laboratory. And one thing I always like to do is, if you've been following my videos, is that I like to go to the standard itself to show you the actual breakdown of the requirements. So typically what I do is I pull the standard and I go right to what I consider the the Bible of ISO 17025, which of course is the quality management standard itself. So as I pull this document up, you'll see general requirements for the competence of testing and calibration laboratories. I'll move myself here, ISO 17025. If you go down to um, the table of contents, where you'll see that even in the table of contents, you see this structure of um, general requirements, structural requirements, resource requirements, process requirements, and then if you scroll down to section 8, management system requirements. So if you go to section 4, which are the first set of requirements, which are general requirements, you'll see that these are broken down into impartiality and confidentiality. So what are the requirements? Section 4.1, really the requirements are a impartiality policy that the lab is structured to safeguard impartiality. So documentation wise, we're looking at an impartiality policy. And then also, you'll notice that in section 4.1.4, it talks about the laboratory shall identify risks to its impartiality on an ongoing basis. So some sort of document there would be, discuss impartiality during management review, for example, and incorporating those into your management review meeting minutes. That would be objective evidence that you identify risk to impartiality on an ongoing basis, because you have management review at least once a year according to the requirements of the standard. Then there's section 4.2, which is confidentiality. In that means what you're looking for as far as documentation requirements would be a confidentiality policy, something that employees would sign indicating that they shall keep all information confidential that pertain to the customer and to data and results or calibration results or testing results that are generated. And that also, this is one that's often missed, and I do give quite a few nonconformities in this area. You'll notice that in section 4.2.4, personnel, including committee members, contractors, personnel of external bodies, and individuals acting on the laboratory's behalf shall keep confidential all information. Some sort of documentation to prove that would be a non-disclosure agreement you have with vendors and with external bodies, personnel of external bodies, or maybe some sort of sign-in sheet when somebody comes and visits your lab, that when they sign in, they sign some sort of agreement that says they will keep information confidential. Then you go to section 5, which is structural requirements. Structural requirements are typically found, you'll see these types of requirements documented usually within a company quality manual. Although a quality manual is not a requirement technically of the standard, it is a good place to house required policies and other documents that the uh, the standard actually does require. So it's a good place to house those. And if you're with a quality manual, I highly recommend that you get a quality manual, or you structure your quality manual in alignment with these clause elements of the standard, and they are in alignment with each other, so that your impartiality requirements within your quality manual would be section 4, just like it is in the standard. That way, it just becomes easier for audit purposes, whether that be an internal audit or an external audit. So within section 5, for example, of your quality manual, you might have an organizational chart that shows your structural requirements for your laboratory, what the reporting structure is for the organization, how your organization is defined, which is in section 5.5. And then you get into structural requirements. I kind of went down a little bit too fast there. And defining the organization management structure, section 5.5. The responsibilities for laboratory personnel, which is section 5.6. And you can see all those requirements. I highly suggest you put these into some sort of quality manual with an organizational chart and then also a definition of responsibilities on what lab positions are, what they are responsible for. Like quality manager is responsible for, assigning management responsibilities for internal audits and management reviews, things like that. Technical management responsibility, somebody who's in charge of the lab, what their responsibilities are, things like that. Then there are resource requirements. Resource requirements are broken up into several sections. You have general resource requirements, which are just resources that are specific to the laboratory. They have personnel resource requirements. Obviously, these are employee requirements, things like that. And then you get into section 6.3, which are facilities and environmental conditions. This is all part of resource requirements. Equipment, requirements for equipment. You have requirements for metrological traceability, and then externally provided products and services. These are all part of these resource requirements. Then you get into process requirements, which is section 7. Section 7 gets into section 7.1, which is contracts. These are how a customer might define what they want you to do with the samples they're going to send you, whether that be test samples or calibration samples. That would be section 7.1. Then you'd have section 7.2, which is selection, verification, and validation of methods. These are your methods for your tests and or calibrations. Then you get into section 7.3, if you perform sampling within the laboratory. Section 7.4 is how you handle your sample management process, how you don't confuse one sample from another, things like that. Section 7.5, which is technical records. Section 7.6, which is evaluation of measurement uncertainty. And section 7.7, which is ensuring the validity of results, where this is where proficiency testing comes into play. And then you have reporting of results in section 7.8. And then you have customer complaints, which is in section 7.9, reporting of results, section 7.8, and then you have section 7.10, which is non-conforming work. And then finally, section 7.11, which is your control of data or your LIMS system for how you generate a final test report and how you keep access data protected, backed up, things like that. So those are all what you would refer to as process requirements. And then finally, we get into section 8, which are management system requirements. And these are the same kind of requirements that you would see in other standards, such as ISO 9001. This is where you'll get into quality policy, quality objectives, which you find in section 8.2. This is where we house your policies and quality objectives. And then section 8.3 for management system documents, or in other words, document control. And then you get into section 8.4, which is control of records, 8.5, which is actions to address risks and opportunities, 8.6, which is an improvement, 8.7, corrective action, 8.8, internal audits, and then finally 8.9, management review. So those are the 5 ISO 17025 requirements, each one having their own policy or procedural requirement that is associated with that. So what you want to do is read this blog post in its entirety, and I think it'll break it down into each, like I said, clause element that will explain that particular clause and what the requirements are. And then we get into the benefits of implementing ISO 17025, and then key components of the ISO 17025 quality management system, steps to implement the quality management system. So if you are a laboratory and you're wanting to know what are the steps to implement ISO 17025 so that you can get ready for your external audit, first thing you want to do is download my free ISO 17025 internal audit checklist and gap analysis tool. This is an awesome tool that you could use to do a gap analysis in your laboratory to find out what you're missing as far as the requirements for ISO 17025. It breaks it down into each individual clause element, and it's a full-on checklist that you can use as an internal audit and gap analysis tool. It's free, and you just put in your name and email, and you'll get instant access to this internal audit checklist and gap analysis tool. And I also give work instruction on how to properly conduct an internal audit. I think you'll find a lot of value in that. And then one last thing you'll notice in this uh, documentation requirements, I go into a little bit of that. You know, like what are you required to show an auditor? And I cover some of that. But one thing that you might want to consider is there are roughly about 12 required procedures in coming from the ISO standard, where the standard literally says the laboratory shall have a procedure for dot dot dot, and that procedure shall include A through H. There's about 12 of those statements, so there are roughly about 12 required procedures, and then there are about 5 required policies, and these are documented procedures and policies. And then, like I said before, even though a quality manual is not required, it is a good place to house those required policies and objectives. I do offer a quality manual that's already completely, fully developed. It's about 58 pages of all of the requirements of ISO 17025 within the framework of a quality manual, and you literally just need to put your company name in there and add a few things about your company, and it will serve as your quality manual. It is guaranteed to pass an audit. Like I said, I am a certified ISO 17025 auditor, and I point out all of the required procedures within the quality manual. And then there's a one-time upgrade offer. The quality manual is $49. Then there's a one-time upgrade offer where you can get all of the required policies and procedures that the quality manual references, and along with those procedures, all of the required forms as appendices in the procedure, so that you can just really just plug and put all of your information in, and now you have all of the requirements, all the documentation requirements of ISO IEC 17025, the 2017 version of the standard. And in addition to that, so it's $49 twice for the whole package. You also get email communication with me if you have any questions on how to utilize these documents, and you also get a free 45-minute consultation with me to answer any question you have of the standard. And again, as you're using the documentation, I am an email away to answer any questions that you may have. I went ahead and put a link at the bottom of this video if you'd like to check out this quality manual and the required procedures. You know, for $98, you get all the documentation requirements that all you have to do is add your company name to, and really that's about it. And the thing is I know that there are other quality templates available out there, and I've seen the prices, and they're nowhere near $98. And you get better value with my system because I created it as from an internal or from an external auditor's perspective, because I know what the auditor is going to audit you for, because I am an auditor and I do audit laboratories actively for one of the largest accreditation bodies in the world. So go ahead and click on the link below, check it out. I will like I said, I am an email away, and if you'd like also to set up a free 45-minute consultation, I have also provided a link for that. And again, I'll also provide another link under this video so that you can download my free ISO 17025 internal audit checklist. And while you're down there, go ahead and subscribe to my YouTube channel and hit the notification bell so that you can be updated every time I produce a video, which I always offer value value. My whole point is to offer value to laboratories that are seeking or wanting to improve their quality management system in accordance with ISO 17025. I do address other standards, but I am an expert in ISO 17025. And if you need any help or guidance, you know where to go. This is Ralph Martin signing out. You make it a great day.